All right, everyone. Welcome back to the Ring the Bell podcast. This is episode 6. I'm your host, David Esser, here with the Philly Sports Network. And boy, do we have a good episode ready for you this week. Now, before we jump into the Clippers game and all that nonsense, I have a very special guest with me this weekend. Ricky, fellow co-worker writer with the Philly Sports Network. Ricky, how are we doing today?
Hey, good. How you doing, David?
After that Clippers game, I am doing phenomenal.
Great game, great game.
Ricky, before we jump into talking about that Clippers game, because it was a very impressive win, and there's a lot to break down with the lineups, who produced when, who produced where on the court. Ricky, tell the listeners a little bit about what you do with PSN and your role with the company.
So I'm pretty spread thin around this company. I cover the Flyers, Wings, and Sixers. I'll throw some Phillies content out there. I pretty much anything. I could write about anything along the book. So follow me on Twitter. Get all the updates about pretty much any Philly sport.
Oh, absolutely, Ricky, and we'll 100% link you down in the description of the podcast whenever that gets uploaded. But let's jump right into things. Sixers, with all the drama in the world surrounding them, taking on the Clippers at home, TNT, primetime. Ricky, what are your initial thoughts coming off that win?
When I was watching it, I was so happy that I was right about something. In my pregame, I wrote about how we just needed to get back to the basics and win bully ball and get points in the paint. And as I was watching, I could tell they were accumulating. We averaged about 43 this season in the paint. We picked up 58 tonight. We used our size. I believe the tallest guys in the Clippers lineup is like 6'6", 6'7", maybe. And we took it to them. So that was my happiest reaction to the whole game, aside from all the Embiid being back.
Yeah, and we'll get into Mr. Joel Embiid here in a minute. But, I absolutely agree. And I tweeted out after the first half our domination down low and in the paint. And I think what a lot of people feared when we moved Al Horford out of the starting lineup for this game is, are we going to continue to dominate down low? And the simple answer to that is yes. With Al Horford moving out of the lineup and slotting in Korkmaz, GR3, Matisse Thybulle, it opens up so much space for Ben Simmons and Embiid to operate down low. And specifically operate together. And Ricky, I want to get your opinion on this. Embiid and Simmons played a ton tonight together, operating in a 1-2 game. What were your thoughts on that?
I mean, I just thought it was finally nice to just see them together again. And it was nice to see Embiid finding confidence in his teammates again and bringing everything was piecing back together. I think we only had about 8 turnovers tonight, which I think we averaged 14 for the season. So that's a very clean game of basketball, led to the win. Just so nice to see Embiid and Simmons and getting rid of all the haters on Twitter and just bringing everything together. So,
yeah, absolutely. A specific set I noticed between the two of them. And again, like you mentioned, a lot of comments have been made from the local media and the national media alike is that they can't play together. And this is something that, for myself, as I've watched the team the last couple of years, it makes no sense to me. They play incredible together. Mm-hmm. And specifically tonight, they would run this set where they would enter the ball down into the post for Simmons, down in the low block area. Embiid would set the screen, and Simmons would either roll off, easy layup, draw the foul, or he would just dump it into Embiid off the switch.
Mm-hmm. And even like bouncing off of that, you saw this was like one of the first games in quite some time I actually saw guys moving off the ball. I saw like in the fourth quarter, it got Josh Richardson on fire from deep, just finding space and creating that space. I know, I think it was you tweeted out something about that, about the spacing finally being back with Horford being on the bench and everything. And it was just nice to see the Sixers finally being that team, that primetime team that we were made out to be to start the season.
Oh, absolutely. And the Horford thing, I think people are going to overplay the concept of him, quote, moving to the bench. In all reality, he still played 28 minutes tonight. That's right about where he's been playing the last couple games as a starter. Embiid does need enough breaks in a game where Horford's going to log a considerable amount of minutes. So this idea of him moving to the bench being a huge, ego check to him where he's not going to play anymore, a waste of the money, like whatever. The simple point is when he's operating in the 5, Al Horford, he's an incredibly productive player. Just looking at tonight, again, in 28 minutes, 9 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, and he was a plus 10. So just in this small sample size alone, you saw on one hand, there being a ton of spacing across the board. Josh Richardson was able to operate in the lane. Embiid was able to operate in the post without constant double teams. Simmons had a phenomenal game offensively. But then you see Al Horford, on the other hand, with the bench unit, having one of the best games of his career as a 76er.
Yeah, then it also just letting him lead the second unit really gives like opportunity for other guys like Matisse, and I mean Furkan had an off night. I don't even think he recorded a point, but but just in general it gives opportunity for Brett Brown to now explore more now that he sees that it worked for once. Maybe he'll move on to the next game and get pieces pulling together.
Yeah, and you mentioned Brett Brown just now, and I think we actually collectively owe Brett Brown some credit for this win. He had the guts to finally... Oh, absolutely. I mean, he finally had the guts to move Al Horford to the bench, which isn't an easy conversation. You know, as much as the fan base collectively likes to bash on Al Horford, myself included, that's not an easy conversation to have with one of your veterans. But secondly, his in-game adjustments were phenomenal. He noticed Korkmaz was off, so he went to GR3 in the second half. Late in the game, he noticed that Al Horford and Embiid were struggling together, and he pulled Al Horford out immediately from Matisse Thybulle and went small.
Yeah, and something else I noticed is that I saw that the Clippers tried to pull some of that dreaded zone defense on us a couple times, and we just pure attacked it, kind of like we mentioned earlier with the sets with Embiid and Simmons, though. Like, we just, all-around great game between the two of them, the whole team. Just got everything finally clicking.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Brett Brown's the credit for most of that.
And I think even another point to look at is the trio of Korkmaz, Glenn Robinson III, and Alec Burks. None of them hit a three the entire game. And that's not going to happen again. Those three are all phenomenal perimeter shooters. So you look at this point that we were able to drop 110 on one of the best defenses in the league without any of our shooters knocking down shots. Like, what more could you ask for?
Yeah, literally. And it was nice to see, just like you kind of mentioned, like we finally get Burks, Robinson getting the rotation. Hopefully we can get that lineup pretty set, get our rotations pretty set, and make this nice little push toward a 3-4 seed, get ourselves moving. But yeah, once we can finally, and Furkan's not going to go, 0 for 5, 0 for 6 or whatever he did in the game.
0 for 5.
That's not going to happen.
No.
He's not going to go 30 points every night, but he's not going to go that bad. So just a matter of picking up guys when they're down. That's pretty much what happened tonight. And I think it's a good time to kind of segue into Joel Embiid and the whole fun stuff that rallied around tonight. So what do you think really got that spark going? Do you think it was the booze the other night or the booze tonight?
Embiid's an interesting character. And obviously, I think, Ricky, you saw me on Twitter yesterday. I was a little bit freaked out with his Instagram antics. Embiid, and I say this with all respect to all of the great 76ers of our time, Embiid's the most talented 76er, I think, to ever play the game of basketball. And that's saying a lot. His production and his potential and his ability is absurdly high. Now, with him, it's always his mental state. I don't know if it was necessarily the booze that kind of did all this. I think some of it was the booze. No one likes getting booze. I think some of it was also just kind of waking him up a little bit, thrusting him into that national spotlight when now everyone's talking about Embiid. Okay, how's he going to respond to the booze? Does he want to play with Jimmy Butler? Does he miss Jimmy?
Oh, Jimmy.
We're Charles Barkley and Shaquille O'Neal right about him. And I think all of that, compounded with a big-time game against the Clippers, really woke up a side to him that we've always known he's had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just having that edge back to him is just it's so fun to watch as a fan. As both a fan and a writer, it's just it makes 76ers basketball enjoyable again. Mm-hmm. Just the fact that I love that him and Morris got into it. I love that he was getting to the line. I think he got to the line probably around 13, 15 times. I forget the exact number,
correct,
but 13. He was finally just getting back to his roots, and it just makes the game so much more fun to watch. So if he stays like that, then it's going to be a real tear going into the playoffs.
I absolutely agree, and I think a big turning point in Embiid's season was back when he got into that fight with Karl Anthony Towns. And obviously, I don't want our best players getting suspended.
Mm-hmm.
But it looks like the front office came down pretty hard on him with that.
Yeah.
And they said, hey, buddy, you got to tone back the antics. Combine that with the fact that he lost two of his best friends this past offseason, and they were replaced with Al Horford. A lot of the front office pressures and stigmas around this season, I think, were negatively impacting Embiid mentally.
Mm.
Now, maybe someone like Kawhi Leonard can put that aside and just go out and perform every night. Embiid kind of needs that.
The robot.
Yeah, Kawhi's, I don't want to talk about. Dude, he drives me insane. He's so good. But with Embiid, I think having the city kind of rally around him, having his teammates and his coaches rally around him, putting that pressure on him, but not coddling him, if that makes sense, that's when he's going to be at his best. Like him getting the technical foul tonight, I love that. That's so okay with me.
Yeah. Yeah, and but you could see it right from the first 5 seconds into the game. He was smiling. The crowd was into it. He was pulling the crowd into the game. It was just finally fun to watch a Sixers basketball game again. That was probably the most fun I've had since that Christmas Day game against the Bucks. Just watching a game as a fan.
It's electrifying when he acts like that and plays like that. Mm. And then it's hard for the other teams. I mean, Marcus Morris, he's a mess mentally out on the court trying to deal with Embiid.
Yeah.
So, loved his game tonight.
Toughness to him.
Oh, yeah, damn, Marcus Morris. Would have loved him on the Sixers, to be fair. He can shoot, man. He can flat out shoot. But kind of our last point here with the Clippers game, because it was a really, really good win. And I felt personally the best player for the Sixers tonight and on the entire court was Ben Simmons. How do you feel about that?
Yes, 100%. And I forget which one of the TNT guys it was, but one of them went into details about saying how he was just quietly one of the most underrated guys in the league of Paul George and Kawhi. And it was just, when he said that, it kind of was like, wow, he's finally getting the recognition. But yeah, just watching him play, he could just take over a game by himself. If he can bring out that intensity every single game, even with and without Embiid on the court, I know there's a bunch of Twitter hatred toward that. Just if he could just go out and play his game, then the Sixers again will be unstoppable with him and Embiid, them two alone.
I think it was Stan Van Gundy who made the comments about Ben Simmons being underrated. And I mean, you look at just the box score and then the eye test. From the box score,
the eye test especially.
The eye test especially. He had a 26-point triple-double tonight in 43 minutes, and he led the Sixers with 22 shots. I am in love with everything about that stat line. He rebounded well, he passed the ball well, he scored well, and he was aggressive. I mean, at one point, he had a little, one-footed kind of running jump shot, and I was like, this is the guy. But then, with the eye test, I mean, he guarded Kawhi Leonard almost every second of that basketball game.
Yeah. I don't care how many points Kawhi dropped, he kept Kawhi in check. You could see the frustration in Kawhi's face at points in the game.
I mean, Kawhi, like we said, he's a robot. We've seen him go off for 40 on us without even breaking a sweat. And although he had 30 points tonight, he looked frustrated. He was yelling at teammates. He was yelling at the officials. He was whining for fouls. He had some turnovers that he normally doesn't have. And that's all accredited to Ben Simmons having just insane endurance and energy on the court to be able to guard one of the best players in the league while also being the best offensive player on the court.
And it was even nice, just aside from Ben Simmons, just to see the team defense really get that. Coming into the season, the defense was the prime focal point of this team. And just kind of glancing at the box score, Paul George only had 11. He went 3 for 15. I mean, it kind of hurts to see Landry Shamet drop 19, but Marcus Morris 13, Lou Williams only 13. I can't complain about any of that. I don't care if Kawhi dropped 1 million. Just the way this whole team came together finally, got everything working again. It's just nice to watch.
Yeah, I mean, if the Clippers' second leading scorer on the night's Landry Shamet, the Sixers did their job.
Yes, exactly.
But Ricky, we could talk about this Clippers game for, I feel like, an hour. But let's move into a different topic and move into a different gear. And Ricky, as you mentioned before, you cover a whole plethora of Philadelphia sports teams. And one team you've had the opportunity to actually go physically cover and be at the games is the 76ers G League affiliate, the Delaware Bluecoats.
Mm-hmm.
So what are your...
So, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
First of all, for anybody that's listening, if you have any opportunity to go to a Bluecoats game, you have to go. It's one of the most... Literally, it's like a high school gym, but it's like an electrifying high school gym. It is so much fun to watch. Every fan's into it. You get to meet some of this players' family. Everyone's so willing to talk. It's just such a great family atmosphere. It's a nice night out for any family, and they're a good team. That's the best part. They're competing for first place in their division. They're going to make a deep playoff push. I just hope that some of these constant pull-ups with the Sixers don't throw their mojo off, but Coach Connor Johnson seems to have his guys pretty stable down there. So pretty good. They'll be a team to watch heading into their playoffs.
Yeah, and the Bluecoats have been known for pumping out some legit NBA players in the last year and a half. You look at Shake Milton, who came up and made a legit impact with the 76ers. I'm a huge Shake Milton fan. I loved what he did with the Bluecoats.
Yeah, I know that.
And I'm loving what he's doing with the Sixers. I love me some Shake. Zaire Smith, who was recently called back up to the 76ers. Mariel Shayok, who was recently called up to the Sixers. And then you have a guy like Christ Kuminjaje. Am I saying that right?
He's a blocking machine.
If I remember correctly, the last time I looked, he's leading the G League in blocks. Is that correct?
Blocks and 3rd, 4th, 5th in rebounds, something around there.
That's crazy. He is a very tall man.
Yes.
But like you mentioned, with so many call-ups, do you, A, expect any of those guys to be called back down to the Bluecoats? And B, do you see any other current Bluecoats potentially making an NBA impact soon in their future?
Soon? I'm not going to speculate just because pretty much the guys that are up are the guys that are really the ones that fans want to see, and 2, the guys that would actually have a chance to crack an NBA roster this season for later in the season. But as much as it kind of pains me to say it as an NBA, like as a Sixers fan, not so much a writer, it's just I feel like Shayok's got to probably go back down. He's Coach Connor Johnson is everything that people complain Brett Brown should be. Just watching him coach, I'm not going to say Brett Brown isn't passionate for his players, but Coach Johnson is very player friendly. So he just says, like, he'll be like, Mario, go do your thing. And he takes over. And that's when you saw Shayok dropping 40, 30, high 30s, 40s back, like in the beginning of the season. He just lets them go. And all the teammates down there are so on the same page. They basically run the court themselves. Coach Johnson just gives them free reign, and it's so cool to watch. But I think Shayok needs to just go head back down, get himself together, just keep developing. That's all that matters. He had a little bit of a strange story making it to his professional career. He was a little older. I believe he was a 5th-year senior, however you want to call that. He ended up at Iowa State and got drafted by the Sixers, and now he's here. So I'm thinking by next season, depending on these off-season moves, he'll be able to get steady on the Sixers bench. Maybe more of like a Jonah Bolden role to start the season next year, but he'll be here, I feel like.
I overall agree with you. I like Shayok's game, but he does appear to be like a volume shooter scorer that's going to need some legit minutes and touches to continue to develop for the Sixers in the future. But Ricky, before I let you go, I know you're on a bit of a time crunch tonight. Trey Burke, as Shake Milton is my favorite backup point guard. Trey Burke was yours, and unfortunately, last week he was released. Thoughts?
It pains me to say it, but it was probably the right move. As much as I don't personally, I don't want to talk much about Roland Neto because I don't know much about Roland Neto coming into the season. I only know him as a Sixer. But as for Trey Burke, it was definitely, if we had to pick somebody to go off this roster, it was Trey Burke. And I'm kind of glad that the Sixers front office didn't because I know they actually guaranteed his contract for the rest of the season. And then they actually, that was strange. And I remember his dad, Trey Burke's dad, was getting kind of like annoyed by the team. So I feel like that was just a situation waiting to go awry. And I'm glad they just kind of respectfully cut ties before anything could get ugly. But again, I don't know how much usage Raul Neto will even really be to this team anymore with the new pickups and everything. But as much as it pains me to say it, it's good to see that we don't even need Trey Burke on this team. That's the depth that we picked up, put it that way.
Yeah, and on first glance, it does look like that backup, that stereotypical backup point guard position is being phased out of the Sixers rotation.
Mm-hmm.
Either Simmons is logging 40-plus minutes or Josh Richardson's running some backup point. You have Alec Burks running some backup point. The need for Neto and Burke was never really there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to kind of play devil's advocate. For the most part, I didn't think Trey Burke was all that good. He had a nice shot, and I'll give him that.
Mm-hmm.
But was he ever going to provide the legit floor spacing of a Korkmaz Burks GR3?
No.
Probably not.
He's definitely a knockoff Korkmaz. He could come out there, he could shoot, he can get some instant scoring, and then that's pretty much it. That's the thing. He just provides that sport. He was just a fun guy to watch, and the whole situation. He was friendly with AI, but I totally see that it was probably could have become a toxic situation. So, and there's really no need for him. There's no need to pay him. Just let these other guys come in and make their thing. Let's make a playoff push.
Do you think the fact that no NBA team has claimed Burke yet kind of validifies the front office's decision to let him go?
That's a tough one. I don't know if it was necessarily because I feel like if the only reason that say they dropped Neto instead of Burke, I feel like Neto would have been picked up just because he has more of a consistent career. He seems like more of a veteran type presence rather than just a guy that an instant plug type thing. Like
he's safe.
Neto actually seems like he's a good locker room type guy and he just goes with the flow. So I could see him being picked up. I just think most teams are just the only teams that would really care to pick up a guy like that are playoff teams, and I don't think he's really fit for any of the playoff teams at this point. I could see him definitely going somewhere in the off season and trying to. I know he's had probably 3 or 4 changes of sceneries already, but
he's been on a few, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe he finally finds that one, and I hope all the best for him. But at this point, it was just I'm glad he's not in a Sixers uniform.
Yeah, I mean, it's always unfortunate when a signing doesn't work out.
Yeah.
But for the most part, we had such a successful trade deadline, in my opinion, that
me too.
Letting him walk is at the end of the day was probably the right decision.
Yeah.
Well, Ricky, unless you want to hang around for a little bit longer, do you have any lasting thoughts?
No, nothing really. Everyone just keep me, David, Zach, a couple of our other guys. We keep following our content because we're going to be in this till the end, whether it's good, bad, or ugly.
Absolutely.
We'll be there by your side. Thanks for having me on. I hope to join in
Ricky,
more
for
often.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Loved your kind of extra insight you're able to give us, especially with the Delaware team. That's unique. But yeah, Ricky.
Yeah, anytime.
Oh, for sure. We'll absolutely have you on. Maybe have you and Zach on at the same time, something like that. We can do a lot of fun stuff. But anyways, Ricky, I'll be sure again. I'll tag all your socials. Everybody go follow Ricky. He pumps out a ton of incredible content across multiple teams. But Ricky, again, thanks for hopping on. Loved having you.
Thank you. Have a nice night.
Well, Ricky might be leaving us, but we still have a whole lot more to cover about our Philadelphia 76ers. Now, again, we've gone over the Clippers game, we've gone over the G League, we've gone over all that good stuff. I want to talk specifically about Mr. Embiid and Mr. Al Horford and their new affection to shushing the Philadelphia Sixers fans. And this is a two-parter because we have Embiid and we have Al Horford, and this actually goes with one of our questions this week from one of our longtime listeners, one of my good friends, Sean at Philly__Philly on Twitter. He says, probably going to be covered anyways, but what's going on with Embiid? So let's talk about Embiid. Because I think Embiid and Horford shushed the Philadelphia crowd for 2 completely different reasons. So starting with Joel. I think he's frustrated with us for booing because he has put a ton into the 76ers organization. He's been our best player the last 3 seasons. He took us deep into the playoffs last year. He's playing injured I think a lot of people discredit that right now, that he is playing injured. But when it comes to the specific moment, why is he shushing us? Why is he frustrated? Most of it is self-motivation. Embiid's motivating himself. He's getting the drama going. He's getting the controversy. He's trying to be that fun, lovable guy again. If you watched the Clippers game tonight, you saw him. He got a technical. He's talking crap with Morris. He's doing the hand gestures, playing up with the fans, dancing on the court, showboating. The shushing and the telling the fans to shut up, that's all part of Embiid and his character. And that's okay, because as we saw tonight and we saw against the Bulls, this actually brings out the best side to him. Some players can't do that. Some players get too emotional and they fall apart. Russell Westbrook is a good example. He gets too emotional and he falls apart. He's taking bad shots. He's forcing it, getting ejected. That's not Embiid. When he gets emotional and he gets in these kind of trolling zones, it fuels it and he plays better. And the stuff with Instagram, wow, I would have preferred if he wasn't conversing with Jimmy Butler, the enemy. As much as I still have positive feelings about Jimmy and his time in Philadelphia, as of right now, he's the enemy. As of right now, Butler and the Heat are the team we play in the first round. Don't want them chumming it up on Instagram. But it's all part of an act for Embiid. And you saw he posted another tweet or Instagram post very shortly after saying it's all love. And after the game today, he's saying, I know they have my back. They support me. He loves his city. He's saying all these things, clarifying everything, but also putting it into perspective for us. It's a long season. And finding that consistent motivation to go out every second, third night and get hit and fouled and pushed around, it's tough. So if him talking a little crap on Twitter, Instagram, messing around with us, if that gets him motivated, by all means do it. If that means we're going to beat the Clippers, by all means do it. Now, Al Horford, on the other hand, I think this is a different story. And while he did look very good tonight against the Clippers, again, I'm recording this Tuesday night right after the Clippers game, I think his initial shush, which again took place before Joel Embiid, completely different reason. I'm sure you've all heard of the phrase, playing for yourself. There's professional athletes who play for themselves at points. Maybe they're frustrated with their contract situation. Maybe they never wanted to be at that team in the first place. Maybe they got drafted to a bad organization, or they're playing for a coach who doesn't support them. And they start playing for themselves. And it's a bad combination when you take a team sport and individual goals and you try to merge them into one. Playing for yourself. Actually, I have a really good personal real-life example. My senior year of high school basketball, I'd been on the varsity team for 3 years. I was a 2-year captain. Ton of pressure riding on me and my teammates to perform that year, and we kind of failed expectations, and people started talking, and my fellow classmates were making fun of us, and I got frustrated. And when I would go and play on Friday night, Tuesday night, I was playing for myself, and it was, I want to prove them wrong. I don't want to win for my teammates. And I think that's the situation Al Horford's in. A lot has been said about his contract being a mistake, about him being overpaid, about him being a bad fit, about him being a sleeper agent. And I think when he's making open shots, up 20, whatever, and he's just using it as a moment to say, I can still play. Sixers fans, don't boo me. Here's me shushing, here's me talking back. And part of it might be him trying to play into that kind of Philly, Joel Embiid vibe of I talk back with the fans, they can take it, I can take it, it's all fun. It's part of that Philly attitude. Jimmy Rollins used to do it back in the day, but we loved him because he was good, right? But I think in this specific instance, it's actually hurting Al Horford. I think it's further identifying him as the, quote, enemy, right? It's making him look more and more like that sleeper agent, former Celtic. And the further the Sixers organization can get away from, sleeper agent Al Horford, former Celtic Al Horford, the better this team's going to play. We need to get to 76er Al Horford. Maybe that it's him coming off the bench. Maybe he's just going to be a really, really good sixth man for us. If he's mature enough to do that and he reinvents himself, so be it. That's awesome. Fine by me, right? But I think him talking crap back to the fans when he's playing as bad as he's been playing, posting career lows almost across the board, it's just further disenfranchising himself with the 76ers. And with the way this team's chemistry is set up, that's probably not what you want to do. Embiid is almost a little more vulnerable to the criticism because he's the franchise star. It's a little bit more acceptable when he talks back because he's the franchise star. Same with Ben Simmons, even Tobias Harris, who was here when we went deep into the playoffs. You don't hear about, no one talks about Harris as the ex-Clipper. You talk about as a 76er. Horford's still very much known as the ex-Celtic. So, again, I've been very, very critical of Al Horford this season. I don't think his mental state's all the way in the right spot here. I think he's actually hindered our chemistry a bit. Again, maybe this whole bench thing reinvents him. If that's the case, he has another 10 days to think about it with the All-Star break coming up. I'm all for it, and I think we can totally turn this thing around. But overall, since it's the whole Shushgate thing, we've won 3 games, so I'm not gonna get too upset. After beating the Clippers, everyone's gonna be talking about the Clippers win. Me and Ricky rambled on about it for 20 minutes. Everyone's gonna be talking about the Clippers win. That's a big win. That's a great way to head into the All-Star break. Something that we all kind of glossed over really quickly because it happened so fast was the trade deadline. I think this was a phenomenal trade deadline for the 76ers. And there's no reason to be frustrated with the way Elton Brand and company handled things. So let's before we dive into that, let's kind of quickly gloss over all the moves the 76ers made. First move, made Wednesday night. I remember I was pulling an all-nighter, staying up for it, pumping out article after article on the trade deadline. 76ers sent over 3 second-round picks, which are almost irrelevant to the Sixers at this point. When are they actually going to use these second-round picks? Mariel Shayot's probably one of the best second-round picks in the last couple decades for the 76ers, and we don't even have a spot for him. So anyone frustrated over trading too many second-round picks, relax. They're second-round picks. It's almost like trading money. Trade 3 second-round picks for Glenn Robinson III and Alec Burks of the Golden State Warriors. This was a phenomenal trade. For the most part, I thought we were only going to get one of those guys. To come away with both shooting near 40% from 3, scoring in the double digits. Phenomenal stuff. And then you go and you get one of those second-round picks back for James Ennis III, who, for some reason, there's a weird kind of portion of Sixers Twitter who really, really like James Ennis. Dude, he's bad. He's been bad. Go look at his playoff numbers. Go look at, let's pull it up real quick. If you hear me typing, I'm sorry, but let's go look at his playoff numbers for the 76ers, because that's what we're getting ready for, right? The regular season only matters so much. Let's look at his playoff numbers. 2019 with the 76ers, right? He shot well from 3. Oh wait, I'm looking at the wrong thing. Playoffs per game. No, he shot terrible from 3. 28%. He shot 20. I was looking at the wrong stat. He shot 28% from 3, right? How is that helpful to us? Shot 63% from the free throw line. Almost averaged more turnovers than assists. A lot of people love to talk about his, defensive ability. Barely got any steals. No block shots. And that's all of this is playing 21 minutes per game. Why in the world would we want to keep that? He was a guy I highlighted before the season as being someone the Sixers didn't need in the rotation anymore. So to shoot him away on an expiring contract for a second-round pick, so now effectively we traded 2 second-round picks for Burks and Robinson III. We traded 2 second-round picks for 2 near 40% double-digit shooters. It's phenomenal. We've seen a little bit more of Glenn Robinson III and what he can do. In his debut with the team, I want to say he had 10, 12 points against the Chicago Bulls, cutting to the basket, finishing, playing half-decent defense. Tonight against the Clippers, he had 6, 3 for 6. We've yet to see his real elite three-point shooting, but that'll come. We saw 14 minutes of Alec Burks tonight. Again, didn't make any threes, only had 2 points, but it's fine. He had 2 assists. Kind of ran some backup point guard. Much rather see him playing backup point guard than Raul Neto. That was a point me and Ricky touched on, is phasing away from, you don't really need certain positions with this team right now. Your core's set. You have your 7 guys. Harrison, Embiid, Simmons, Richardson, Korkmaz, Horford, Thibault. Those guys are always going to play. But now let's just go get guys who fit what we need. Just guys who can space the floor. Brett Brown actually started, again, as I mentioned before with Ricky, he started Glenn Robinson third in the second half. And while he didn't make any threes, that threat of having a shooter on one of the wings just opened up acres of space for Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. And Burks is going to do the same thing. And Korkmaz is going to do the same thing. So now we're talking about 3 legit shooters coming off your bench who are just going to space the court. If Mike Scott can ever regain his form, we're up to 4. I love the trade deadline. A lot of people wanted us to pull off some crazy big move. We just didn't have the assets. No one was interested in Zaire Smith, as nice as it would have been to trade him, because I'm not sure what his future with the 76ers will be anymore. No one was interested in Zaire Smith. We didn't have a ton of picks. We had limited salary. Unless you're trading Al Horford, which they were insistent on not. It's hard to return a really, really good player back. Or if they wanted to trade Tobias Harris, which I thought would have been a terrible idea. But kind of, moving, we've established I thought they were good moves. So what's their role in the future? I wouldn't mind if one of them actually started, preferably GR3. I think you slot him, considering the Sixers remain with this smaller lineup with Harris the 4 and Horford off the bench. You put GR3 at that number 3, right at the small forward spot. Knock down an open 3 once in a while, can finish. On the bigger side, he can play defense. And then you have Horford, Korkmaz, and Burks coming off the bench. That's a pretty good first 3 off the bench. And Korkmaz obviously struggled in the starting lineup tonight, which is like he was taking good shots. I'm not frustrated about that. But let him go back to coming off the bench where he excelled. Kind of be part of that second unit where you can get a lot of shots with Embiid out. So my personal opinion is let Glenn Robinson III grab that starting small forward spot. You have Burks essentially plays the backup point guard, backup 2. Pair him up with Josh Richardson once in a while. It's a win-win all the way across the board. And I think it kind of compounds itself on this Clippers game where you saw us very effectively beat a good basketball team in the Clippers with bad shooting, right? Shot 8 of 27 tonight. It's 29% from 3. Made 8 threes compared to the Clippers' 14, and we still won. So now imagine if we get those threes up to 12, or even 15, right? Once Burks and GR3 get into a rhythm, Korkmaz ain't going to shoot 0 for 5 every night. Ricky mentioned that earlier. That's not going to happen. Even Tobias Harris, he's not going to shoot 1 for 6 from 3 every night, although he had a great game tonight, all things considered. It's just a ton of compounding positives. So, kind of our lasting point, segueing into who they had to cut. We already talked about Trey Burke, talked about James Ennis being traded. Jonah Bolden was the other guy who got released. I mean, he didn't really have a role in this team anymore. Played a little bit last year. He had very limited minutes this year, spent most of his time in the G League. He didn't look very good. He was told to put on weight. He really didn't. He was told to improve his jumper. He really didn't. Hey, it's Jonah Bolden. You weren't going to get... I'm sure they shopped him. I'm sure they shopped Kyle O'Quinn. I'm sure they even maybe shopped Raul Neto, shopped Trey Burke. Unless they were getting legit picks back like they did with James Ennis. Cut him, let him sit on the bench. No harm, no foul. But our current group of 8-9 guys that we're rocking with, Again, Harris, Embiid, Simmons, J. Rich, Korkmaz, Horford, Thibault, GR3, and Alec Burks. That's a really, really good group going forward. They might be active in some buyouts. They might not. I'm personally pretty thrilled with the group they've managed to acquire seemingly out of nothing. Well, anyways, as far as I can tell, that's about all the topics we've covered. Beat the Clippers, huge win. Didn't really talk about it, but Korkmaz against the Grizzlies and the Bulls, electric. Tons of threes, tons of aggression. He had an off night against the Clippers, but don't worry about that. Everyone has their off nights. I think he's going to continue to be a very, very good bench scorer for us. Sharpshooter, floor spacing, all positives. All positives with Korkmaz at the moment. But yeah, good win against the Clippers. I felt good trade deadline. Even with all the Embiid Horford drama, it looks like everyone's responding well. Tons of energy tonight, interacting with the home crowd. For the first time in 6 weeks, I feel very, very, very positive about where the Sixers team is. And heading into the All-Star break, that's right where you want to be. The Sixers have a ton of momentum. Embiid's playing well. Simmons is playing extremely well. Both are going to go to the All-Star game. Harris is starting making some people question whether he should have been an All-Star. I know he was nominated for the Olympic national team. That's great news. Brought in good guys at the trade deadline. Internally, guys are producing. Shake Milton's look good. Korkmaz, again, as I mentioned, look good. Tons and tons of positives. But yeah, the Sixers, NBA, heading into the All-Star break. Embiid and Simmons will be active in the physical All-Star game. No one else got selected to anything else. It's fine. Matisse Thybulle probably should have made the Rising Stars game. I know me and Zach talked about that last week. But overall, it's a ton of positivity right now. Outside of that, not a whole lot more to talk about. A little bit shorter episode tonight. Again, huge shout out to Ricky for coming on. I'm going to link all his social medias on Twitter, on Facebook, wherever this podcast gets posted to. Again, podcast is on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spreaker. It'll be on Twitter. It'll be on my Facebook. My personal Twitter is @PhillyInsider99. You can find me at Facebook, just David Esser, ESSER. I'll gladly friend you back. DM me anytime, message me anytime, shoot me your questions, all that good stuff. Again, I'm David Esser with the Philly Sports Network, signing out.